Good morning. Welcome to another edition of IHCP Live. My name is Michael Cook. I'm the Director of Provider Services, and I'm excited to have everybody on today to learn a little bit more about our provider certification process through OMPP. I think we have a lot of people today, so if you're brand new to our IHCP Live series, the purpose of this is to provide updates to Indiana Medicaid policy while giving providers an opportunity to ask us questions and clarifications on new policy. If it's your first time, welcome. We're really excited to have you today and to talk through our provider certification process. We'll be covering three general topics today on our presentation. So first, we're going to spend just a few minutes giving a very quick overview of the new HCBS waiver structure that starts on July 1st. We're then going to pivot to talking about the bulk of our presentation, which is around the three-step process that you need to learn for becoming an IHCP waiver provider. And in particular, we'll be spending a vast amount of our time focused on our new HCBS certification process through OMPP. We'll then touch upon some key reminders and key tips with enrollment with the IHCP in general. And then we'll go talk about the final programmatic enrollment requirements to finish the process. And then we'll finish our presentation with some opportunity for questions at the end. I think it's always good to start these presentations just to have an overall goal in mind of what we want you as an audience to come away from at the end of this. And really our goal today is for you to have a reasonable understanding of the new HCBS certification and enrollment process. We'll be throwing a lot of information out there for you, and some of it we'll have to go through it multiple times, but the important thing is we want you to walk away from this feeling comfortable and having a reasonable understanding of the process. So with that, let's get started. We're going to start today by giving, again, a quick overview of our new HCBS waiver structure that starts on July 1st. So as of July 1st, we're going to be making some transitions with our HCBS waiver authorities. OMPP will be providing certification for the following three waivers. We're going to be providing certification for the Indiana Pathways for Aging waiver, the new Health and Wellness waiver, and the Traumatic Brain Injury waiver. So if you've been following the news, we've been doing a lot of details around the Indiana Pathways for Aging program. But in addition to that program, we have a parallel Indiana Pathways for Aging waiver. So this waiver, we'll go into this in a little bit more detail in just a second. This is actually going to be an outgrowth of the aged and disabled waiver. So the aged and disabled waiver will be going away as of July 1st, and it will now be split between the Indiana Pathways for Aging waiver and the Health and Wellness waiver. And we'll talk about the differences between the two in just a moment. OMPP will be providing certification for all three of these waivers. And one key fact that we want you to remember about this process, for providers that are seeking certification for either waiver, either the Pathways waiver or the Health and Wellness waiver, you'll be automatically certified for both populations and both waivers. We don't want providers to have to go through this process two separate times for two separate waivers. So if you plan to provide services for one population or the other, you'll automatically be certified for both should you make that decision in the future. So the purpose of today's presentation isn't to go into details around the Indiana Pathways for Aging program, but we do want to touch upon the Indiana Pathways for Aging waiver. This is specifically authorizing waiver services for individuals who are age 60 and older. These are services that will be administered by our managed care partners at Anthem, Humana Healthy Horizons, and United Healthcare. And we're certifying for the same set of services that the aged and disabled waiver certifies for today. So you can see that entire list on your screen. The additional waiver, the parallel waiver to this, is our Health and Wellness waiver. And this is the same set of services, but this is intended for individuals who are aged 59 and under. This will also be different in the future in that this waiver will be administered by our friends at the Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services. So while you'll begin the process of becoming a provider and going through certification with OMPP, once you go through certification, go through enrollment, you'll actually be working with the Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services for any oversight and ongoing maintenance of the waiver services. As I mentioned earlier, we are also certifying providers for the traumatic brain injury waiver. We're not making any changes to that waiver. We just want to identify that the certification process will be, again, starting through OMPP, and it will be administered through the Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services starting on July 1st. And again, you can see the services that we are certifying on the screen in front of you. But now we really want to spend time talking through the overall certification and enrollment process, because this is the big change that providers will start seeing in the next few weeks and months ahead. So we're going to talk through 3 key steps that we want you to take away: OMPP certification, IHCP enrollment, and then finalizing your waiver enrollment, depending upon the direction you'd like to go. And we're going to talk about each one of those steps in more detail. Big change that we'll be utilizing with the OMPP certification process is we'll be requiring providers to submit their application and requests through a new system that we call Salesforce. This is an online portal where you can upload documents, communicate with the OMPP certification team, check out your copies of certifications, all that functionality within one portal. So all the information that we're doing and all the certifications will be captured through Salesforce. So we're going to be spending some time going through step by step what this will look like. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be turning this system on. And the first step we're going to be asking you to do is to create an account. Every agency that wishes to go through the certification process, whether that's a brand new provider or an existing provider who would like to add new services or change the counties in which they'd like to service, they will all be required to create an account and start the process through Salesforce. So if you look on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll be greeted with a login screen. We'd like you to click the Need to Register button. After clicking that button on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll be asked to provide your first name, last name, and email. Within a few seconds of that information being populated, you're going to be getting an email similar to what you see on your screen, which is a welcome to provider enrollment application. Just a very quick welcome. Click on the link that you see on your email to get the process started. One key tip we want to remind providers about: make sure that as you're starting this process, check your junk and spam folders just to make sure. Every now and then, something from Salesforce or any of our other systems may get caught in the junk folder. So just be extra careful about that. When you click the link, you'll get a new pop-up that goes directly into our Salesforce system, where you'll be asked to give some additional information about your agency. We'll be asking for your legal business name, business phone number, and business address. Go ahead and complete that information. For your legal business name, we'd like to have you match the information that's listed on your W-9 when you file your taxes with the IRS. And for your business phone number, we'd like them to be entered in the pattern that you see on your screen. After you've provided that information, if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll be asked to create a password. Pretty simple. Really key detail, and I want to reinforce this: all of our certification activity will be performed through Salesforce. So this is really your key to adding services, making changes to your account. So it's really critical that you remember your password. So please make sure, write it down, have it saved in a good spot. When you've completed that process, you'll be logged into the homepage on our Salesforce system. And we're actually going to go through several different functionalities within Salesforce. But the first thing I want to bring up is our inquiry tool. Even before you get started with the application process, you might have questions about specific services, or you may have technical issues, you may have technical questions about completing the application, or you may, something along the way, it stumbles you before you can even get through and complete the application. We want you to use this feature called inquiry. If you click on that button, you'll look to the bottom right-hand side of your screen. You'll see a screenshot of a box that pops up. You'll be allowed to tell us if you're seeking application assistance, or if you're looking for any clarification on specific services that you might be interested in being certified for. This will allow you to type a quick message. That message will be relayed to the OMPP certification team, and you'll have a back and forth exchange, all completed within Salesforce. When you're ready to go with completing an application, you actually have multiple options that are available to you by clicking the Applications button at the top of the screen. This drop-down menu is going to give you keys to applying for a brand new application, continuing a previously submitted application, applying for new services, checking the status of an application, along with checking all of their completed applications that have completed the process. And we'll go through each one of these in a little bit more detail, but we'll start with that top option of applying for a new application. When you click that button, you'll be asked two questions: whether you want to choose a brand new application, you're a brand new provider to the program, to seeking certification, or if you're going through a change of ownership and you want to complete that specific application. One key thing we want to bring up about this, even if you are an existing waiver provider, if you are seeking to add services, that this is your first time interacting with OMPP or through our Salesforce system, we're going to be asking you to complete a new application and to go ahead and indicate services that you're already certified for, as well as certified services that you're seeking certification for. That way we get everything built into Salesforce, all in one spot with OMPP. It's sort of the cleanest approach we can take. But once you click that new application button, you're going to be greeted with the screen that you see on the lower right-hand side. This is where you'll start to supply some basic information about the business itself. Again, who's the administrator or the owner of the business name, their tax classification. Make sure to match whatever's on the W-9. That'll be important for IHCP enrollment purposes. We'll be asking for contact information, licensure, if you have a license through the Indiana State Department of Health, and then your mailing address and physical address location. If you look on the bottom of your screen, you'll be asked the type of waiver that your business is wishing to provide. You have the option of selecting pathways in health and wellness, or traumatic brain injury, or both. The pathways health and wellness piece, again, indicates that even if you are intending to provide services for the health and wellness population or just the pathways population, we're going to certify you for both regardless, so that if you decide you want to serve both populations down the road, you're able to, you don't have to seek additional certification for us. When you click the next screen, we're actually going to be asking you about if you are currently approved as an HCBS provider with one of our other HCBS waivers through DDRS, specifically our Community Integration and Habilitation waiver or the Family Supports waiver. This is a good way for us just to be able to collaborate with DDRS in the event that you are a provider. We'd like to make sure that they're aware that you're seeking certification through one of our OMPP waivers, and we can have information shared back and forth. We're also going to be asking if you are currently certified through CIH or FSW. We'll be asking if you're currently on any corrective action. When you click next, you'll be greeted with a screen that will ask you a series of questions around your understanding of the HCBS settings rule. And if you're not familiar with this, the HCBS settings rule is essentially a set of federal rules that are applicable to all HCBS providers that help ensure that people who are receiving HCBS have the opportunity to live the way they want to live, with a variety of rights given to individuals, to making sure that providers are respecting their dignity and privacy. They have access to community resources. They have choice, again, to live the way that they want to live. Now, if you hover over the little eye, the circle with the eye with the circle around it, that will actually give you a little bit more detail as far as what the questions that we're going to ask you to attest your understanding about the settings rule to. So really, this is your opportunity to tell us what you know about the settings rule, to give us, making sure that, again, you are attesting that you understand that as you're going through the certification process, as part of the certification, you agree to comply with the HCBS settings rule. When you click Next, you'll be asked to begin selecting the services that you'd like certification. So we've created a drop-down list that you can, which service or services that you'd like to seek certification for. You'll click Next, and then you'll be greeted with all the documents that you are required to submit as part of the certification process. So let's say you are selecting 2 or 3 individual services. Depending upon those 3 individual services, the system is smart enough to know all the documents that are required across all 3 of those services. We're also only going to be asking you a copy of a document once if it applies to all 3 services. So you don't have to worry about uploading a document multiple times for each one of the services that you're seeking certification for. So for instance, if all 3 of your services require a personnel policy to be uploaded, we'll just be asking you to upload 1 copy of your personnel policy. When you click Next, you're going to go screen by screen. You'll have an individual screen for each required document that you need to upload. So if you look at the top of your screen, you'll be greeted with, for example, you'll be asked to upload a copy of your process for evaluation of job performance. You'll click the Upload Files button. You'll have a little pop-up that appears on your desktop. You'll be able to navigate and find the file and click the Upload button. You'll click Next, and then you'll get a confirmation screen like you see at the bottom of your screen showing that you've uploaded the following file. And you're going to be going through this process for each one of the documents that is required for certification. We are asking and requiring that as you go through certification, you need to have all the documents ready to go as you're starting the certification process. So if you hit a document requirement that you don't have that document ready to go, you won't be able to continue with the application. But we'll be able to come back to that application later on, and we'll touch upon that in just a few minutes. So you'll go through screen by screen for all the documents that you're required to upload. When you get done with that, you'll be asked about the counties that you'd like to serve. On the top screen, you'll get a summary of the services that you're asking for certification, and then you'll get, for the next following screens, you'll be asked which county or counties that you'd like to service for each one of those services. So in the bottom screen, you see that you'll have a list of counties that you're being served for home and community assistance. And then you'll be asked to indicate the new counties that you'd like to serve under that specific service. And you'll do this for each service that you're seeking certification for. Again, in this example, this person chose home and community assistance, and then they've chosen attendant care. So attendant care gets its own separate selection screen. You'll be asked the individual counties that you'd like to service for attendant care. When you click Next, You'll get this message that says, thank you for completing the application. You'll receive an email notification when your enrollment analyst begins the application. So at this point, your application is in our queue, internal queue, to be assigned to an analyst for review, and you will actually receive a communication once that action has taken place. And we'll talk about the timeframes for when you can expect your application to be reviewed and statuses to be changed in just a couple of minutes. Now let's go back to that home screen for a second, because there are additional options on that applications drop-down menu that we'd like to go through. And I alluded to this a couple of minutes ago, that if you get halfway through the application and you're not quite ready to go, or maybe something happened and you needed to exit the application and you thought, oh, I don't want to lose my progress. Well, the good news is Salesforce is automatically saving your application as you go. So if you have to leave or you get timed out, because there is a limited amount of time that you can stay in the portal before inactivity will log you out. But if you have started an application, you didn't quite finish it, you can click on the continue not yet submitted application button. Now this is going to take you to a list view that will show you any and all applications that you started but have not actually submitted to OMPP. So in this example, we find that there's an application that was started on March 8th of 2024. If you click on the PAN, provider application number, you'll be greeted with the screen that you see in the middle of your screen. And this is giving you the basic details about when you started the application, who started it, all of that. The really key detail is to be able to click on the Continue Application button. It will, if you click that button, you'll begin at the beginning of your application, but anything that you've inputted up until the point that you stop the application will still be there. So we want to make that clear. You'll start at the beginning of the application, but any data that you've entered and any documents that you've uploaded to that application will continue to be there. So you'll just be able to resume right where you left off. Now, once you've completed an application, maybe you want to check in on the status of a particular application. There's actually 3 different ways you can check the status of the application, depending upon where it's at. If you're checking into applications that are in review, you can click the in review applications. And what that's going to provide you is another list view of any and all applications that you've submitted that are actually with OMPP going through the certification process at this point. If you want to see all applications that have been completed previously, maybe you want a historical trail of what you've done through Salesforce, you can click on completed application and get another list view. And then if you're just interested in any and all applications, whether they're incomplete, they're in review, they've been completed, you can click on the all applications button and you'll get an entire view of everything you've done historically within Salesforce. Now I want to talk about another function that we're really excited about. We know that communication is key to making this successful. And we know that you may have questions for our team as we're going through the process, and our team may have questions of you as we're going through the process. And so within Salesforce, we have a tool that's called Chatter. And it allows us to do just that, back and forth communication between our team and you as the provider, all in one place. So if we look to that previous list view and we're looking at the in review applications, I clicked on PAN 2404. You can see the individual OMPP analyst that application has been assigned to. And in this example, it just happened to be assigned to me. Now on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a box that looks just like this. This is our chatter box. What you're going to be able to do is you can actually use the @ sign and click in the name of the person that that application has been assigned to, and you can send them a message, and they can send you a message back and forth. And the entire historical trail will be there within Salesforce for you to look at down the road and for us to look at for historical purposes. And this will be critical in the event, and I think we'll talk about this in a minute as well, if we have to return any applications back to you. We know there's the opportunity that maybe you're seeking clarification on what is it exactly that we're looking for that you need to correct. You don't quite understand. You can chatter your analyst and get that detail from them. And if the reverse is happening, if the analyst is reviewing your application and they happen to see multiple things that need to be corrected within your application, they'll be able to use the chatter feature to clarify exactly what needs to be, how it needs to be changed. So the way chatter notifications will work, if you start a message, or if we start the message, the person who's receiving that message will get two forms of notifications. They'll get an email sent to the email address that's associated with the account, and they'll also get a notification directly within Salesforce. So if you see on the bottom left-hand side, this is an example of the analyst who has mentioned you in a post. You'll get a copy of the message with the opportunity to click on the view comment and to go directly into Salesforce to view that comment and to respond back to the analyst. You can do the same functionality directly within Salesforce if you're in the system. If you click the little bell icon, it'll give you any of the notifications that you've received, any messages that you've received or any changes to the application. All of those notifications will be popped up right there on that bell. Now, I talked a minute about applications being returned for corrections. We don't want that to be the case. We hope that the applications are good to go from the beginning, but we know sometimes documents may need to be updated for compliance with the requirements. So if this for every document that you've uploaded, we have the ability to return that document back to you. And it's going to look the same, similar to how it will look with a chatter message. If we review, in this example, if we identify that corrections are necessary for a background check or a personnel file, we're going to update that status in our system. And you as a provider will receive an email example like this. It will say an analyst is reviewing your application and we have an update. We're going to identify the document as well as the status. And in this case, we indicate that it was an incorrect document, the wrong document uploaded. So you'll be asked to submit a correct document. Don't believe it's within 2 business days. I think this is in our test environment. We've got that updated in a couple of slides, but you'll click the link and that'll give you the opportunity to pop up into you'll see the screen on your lower left-hand side. If you click that link, you'll go directly to the document in question. You'll click the related box, and then you'll find the files section in the lower right-hand side of your screen. You can add a file and upload a new version of that document. You can see that version, and we can now see that version. We will get a notification back that you've uploaded a new version, and we'll continue to review the documents as necessary. Now, I mentioned chatter previously, and again, to reiterate, if we find ourselves in the situation where we're reviewing an application and we've identified multiple things that need to be corrected within that application, our analyst will actually chatter you and give you a specific detailed list of all the things that need to be corrected. Will get its own email, and we know that could be a little cumbersome. So we're going to try and package any and all corrections together into one communication so that you have it all in one place. And using the chatter feature, that gives you the opportunity to ask any clarifying questions that you might have as we go through this process. At the end of the day, the goal is the same. We want you to get to the finish line and have a completed certification. So this certification letter is very similar to what you've seen previously. If you've already been certified through the Age and Disable waiver or TBI waiver, we've just modified it ever so slightly. But we're going to give you on our letter, we're going to describe the 3 steps that we're going through today: certification, enrollment with the IHCP, and then finishing your waiver program enrollment. And then we're going to give you all the services and waivers and counties that you're certified for. So in this example, this provider has been certified in attendant care, community transition, and pest control. They are able to serve 3 counties, and they're certified for all for pathways, for health and wellness, and for the TBI waiver. We want to go through some common expectations that we're establishing for ourselves. So expectations that you as a provider can have of us, but expectations that we will have of you as a provider as well. So from the point that you submit your application, a complete application with all the requirements, we're going to make sure that those applications are assigned to our staff for review within 2 business days of submission. And then we will require that within 2 business days of assignment, those applications are actually begun to be reviewed by our team. And we'll get notifications if an application hasn't been moved to in review within that time frame. At the same time, as we go through the application, if we find that we need to return documents back to you for correction, we're going to be asking that you make those corrections within 10 business days of the request. As we described earlier, you'll get an email for each and every document that needs to be updated, as well as if it's additional multiple documents, you'll get a chatter message from our analyst describing in detail all the documents that need to be corrected. If you don't take any action within 5 business days, you'll get an automatic reminder email that, again, we're awaiting an update. Please make sure you make changes to the documents as appropriate. If we do not get updates within 10 business days, those applications will expire and you'll need to start the process again. So we really want to make sure that we are being timely in review of your application, but you are timely in any request that we ask of you to make corrections to your documents. It's okay to have back and forth, and we expect that we will have back and forth, but we will also allow applications to expire if it's returned for correction more than 2 times. So if we ask you to make updates, we want to make sure that you make those updates. Otherwise, we may have to expire the application and have the process start again. So we've described a lot about the OMPP process, but we want to switch gears to go to step 2 and talk just a little bit about enrollment with the IHCP. Once you're through the certification process, you need to make sure that you're updating your information with the Indiana Health Coverage programs. That's going to be the key for working with our managed care entities, as well as working with DDRS for the health and wellness and TBI waivers. To begin this process, we strongly encourage providers to enroll using the IHCP Provider Healthcare Portal. This is, again, similar to our Salesforce system. This is an electronic solution where you can upload all of your documents, complete everything online, have back and forth communication with the provider enrollment team, all in one place. As a backup, our provider enrollment team does allow for paper applications, but again, highly encourage for efficiency that you utilize the IHCP Provider Healthcare Portal. So when you log into the Provider Healthcare Portal, you're going to click on the Provider Enrollment button, and you'll follow the prompts on your screen. It says get through the process. When you're ready to start an application, you'll actually on the provider enrollment screen, you'll have 3 options. You can start a brand new application. You can pick up an application in progress, or you can also check the status of the application as long as you know the application tracking number. As far as enrollment requirements, we require providers to complete an IHCP provider application. So again, you're going through the electronic application, you need to complete it. You need to have a signed IHCP provider agreement. That's part of the application. So as you go along, you'll finish that naturally. You need to upload a copy of your HCBS certification letter, either from OMPP, or if you've previously gone and certified through a Division of Aging, you want to make sure that you get a copy of that letter uploaded to your enrollment. And then we'll ask that you complete and upload a current copy of the federal W-9 form. One thing we want to stress is the W-9 form seems to always be a key issue with applications being returned back to providers. So please make sure that you're using the most recent version of the W-9 when you're submitting the application. Now, we know the W-9 was just recently updated in March of 2024. So we are giving providers a little bit of grace for the next few months. We know that this version is brand new. It wasn't updated previously. Last time it was updated was, I believe, October of 2018. But in the months ahead, we will be requiring that you use the most recent version. So get in the habit of making sure that you're using that, or otherwise the application may be returned back to you for corrections. A couple additional enrollment requirements that we want to bring up. Depending upon the services that you've been certified for, you may be asked to complete a fingerprint background check, or you may be asked to pay an application fee. And this is limited to just a small set of services, so specifically attendant care, specialized medical equipment, adult foster care, and transportation services. Depending upon the services that you're certified for, you may need to get a fingerprint background check, and you can find instructions to do that through the Indiana State Police, or you may need to pay an application fee. And again, we've got details through the IHCP bill pay webpage on paying the application fee. Now, when you go through certification with us, if you are selecting one of these services that will require a background check or an application fee, we're actually going to alert you to both of those. That let's say, for example, you've selected attendant care. We're going to alert you that in addition to uploading a background check for certification, you need to have a state background check that follows and complies with the IHCP requirements through the Indiana State Police, and we'll give you instructions on how to do so. Similarly, if you're selecting transportation as an example, you'll be asked to pay an application fee. You will be prompted whether you'd like to request an application fee hardship waiver. You can say yes or no. There'll be some details as far as what's required, what additional documentation you need to upload to support that request, but we'll give you that option. And you don't have to request either one of those or take action during the certification process if you don't want, but we've done that as a process improvement where if we know that requirement is coming into place with IHCP enrollment, this allows you to go ahead and do it right now to save some time later on. I mentioned a minute ago that the W-9 form always seems to be at the center of any problems with provider enrollment. So a couple pitfalls that we'd like to point out about the W-9. Make absolutely sure that as you're completing the application, the legal name and legal address that you put on your application matches what you put in the W-9. We also want to make sure that the tax classification and the EIN that you put on your W-9 matches that legal information supplied on the application. If any of those elements disagree with each other, you will be asked to update the application as appropriately. So you may have some common concerns or common questions about this process. For instance, what will my effective date be, and do I need to ask for a retroactive effective date? Your IHCP enrollment effective date will retroactively match the certification effective date. So if you have been certified as of May 1st, you go through IHCP enrollment starting on June 1st, you complete that process. Because of your waiver certification, we're automatically will be matching the dates that you're certified based upon your OMPP HCBS certification. How long does the IHCP enrollment process take? The initial review of your application is required within 20 business days of the application submission. It's usually quicker than that, but we can't say definitively that the process will be finished within 20 business days unless there are no corrections necessary for the application. Otherwise, if you do have to make corrections to your applications, you'll be given 21 days for IHCP purposes to correct those errors on your application. So you finish that process. What happens now? You will be sent a welcome letter via email to the email address that you supplied on your enrollment file, as well as a hard copy will be sent to the mail to address that you supplied on your application. This welcome letter is important because it will give you your Medicaid provider ID, or also known as an LPI, and that's going to be essential for the final step in the process that we'll talk about in just a minute. This letter does not come directly from OMPP. This will actually be coming from our provider enrollment vendor, which is a company called Gainwell Technologies. So if you see an envelope from Gainwell, it's legitimate. That is actually for provider enrollment. So make sure to remember that. Now your provider ID or LPI, it will be shared with our partners at DDRS as well as our managed care entities, but you as a provider still will need to take some further action. So we want to talk through that final step right now. So you've gone through certification with OMPP, you've gone through Salesforce, you've enrolled with the IHCP, great. Now we need to finish the process. So this is where the paths are going to diverge just a little bit depending upon which population you'd like to serve. We're going to start first with the Indiana Pathways for Aging program. So again, as we talked about at the beginning of our presentation, the Indiana Pathways for Aging is both a program, it's a managed care program, but it's also a waiver and a series of waiver benefits. And this is for the 60 and older population. If you're planning to pursue the 60 and over population and serve the Pathways program, you'll need to work with one or all of our managed care entities that are actually administering this program. Again, Anthem, Humana, and United Healthcare. We've provided links to each one of their network participation request web pages, which will give you more details around the application that they require you to submit, or the process that they'd like you to pursue in order to build that relationship with the health plan. You'll go through an enrollment process, sign a contract with them, and ultimately be considered a participating provider with each one of those health plans. Couple things you can expect through this process. If you start the process with Anthem, for example, that health plan will outreach to you within 24 hours if there's an incomplete application. So they're contractually required to review that application for completeness to make sure that they have all the documents necessary and that it's filled out enough that they can process it correctly within 24 hours. So if you're missing any piece of the document or they need some additional information, they'll be making outreach to you immediately. They are expected to complete their request within 30 days from the completed application. Again, assuming that the application is clean and complete, you should expect this process to take no later than 30 days. You may hear the term credentialing. The health plans require credentialing for almost all of their providers, and that's an additional step in the process. But for HCBS providers, credentialing is not applicable. And then finally, As part of this process, the health plans will work with your provider agency on signing a contract with that health plan. And that's essentially agreeing to the terms and conditions of participation with that particular health plan. For health and wellness, or TBI for that matter, we are going to take a couple actions within OMPP, but then you as a provider need to take an action as well. So we will make sure that a copy of your certification letter will be emailed to DDRS so that they have that for their records. Once you've completed IHCP enrollment and you get that welcome letter and you're good to go, you'll be asked to submit an email to the BDS Provider Services email address that you see on your screen, and they'll get in touch with you and take any additional action that needs to be taken. At that point, upon receipt of the notification, DDRS will make sure that you as an agency get added to the applicable PIC list, depending upon the waiver that you are certified to provide services for. So that's a lot of information, and I'm assuming we have some good questions out there. But before we get to questions, we always like to finish our webinars by talking about some of the resources that are available to all of our IHCP providers. All providers have access to regional field consultants. These are the individuals that are located across the state who can help you with billing, enrollment, general understanding about the IHCP. We also make a variety of provider reference materials available to providers. These are sort of laying out the rules of the road, explaining billing guidance, and all the intricacies about the program. And then we provide ongoing provider education, like today's webinars, our IHCP Roadshow that's going on right now, our annual seminar that takes place every year, and other events scheduled throughout the year. We want you to stay up to date on everything happening within the IHCP. So if you go to the Indiana Medicaid provider website, scroll down, you see a little green box. They'll ask for your email address. With that, you'll get one weekly update with all the bulletins and web updates and provider reference material updates that we publish. FSSA has several, and OMPP specifically has several email addresses that the provider relations team maintains to help stay in contact with providers. If you're having individual provider concerns, you need assistance from the state or perhaps a second look at a particular issue, you can send an email to our OMPP provider relations inbox. And if you have any feedback or suggestions for on presentations or for future presentations, or even questions that you'd like to see answered in future publications, you can send those to IHCP Listens. We encourage providers to utilize their provider relations field representatives at first, as well as our managed care provider relations team. But again, in the event that you need additional assistance from the state, you can contact our provider relations team. With that, I'm going to take a quick pause and see what kinds of questions we have. Looks like we've had quite a few back and forth. So what I'm going to ask is to make sure that we address everything. If it has not been addressed already, if you can raise your hand, I'll call upon you and ask that you go ahead and put that question back in the chat. That'll allow me to make sure that I stay up to speed on anything that has not been addressed. So I'm going to start with Allie Stearns, if you'd like to write your question in. While we wait for Allie, I'm going to go with Kaylin Care Home Services. You're on deck. Allie asked, will there be clarification on the process of signing up with the pathways providers? Some require you to sign up through a third party to provide home and vehicle modifications, for example. So the couple things I'll say. One, we are working on an OMPP specific webpage that will give you directions to each one of the managed care entities that are administering the Pathways program. The best direction we can provide at this point is you need to work directly with the health plan because they've got detailed instructions on the ways that they're asking providers to complete their enrollment applications. Most are using an online portal. Some may be asking you to send an email to initiate the process, but we really want you to work directly with the health plans, and we'll give you the detail to contact the health plans. So I want to make sure Kaylin Care Home Services, if you've got a question, feel free to type it in. Will this presentation be available? Yes, absolutely. So we are recording this presentation. We will plan to post it maybe later this week, could be early next week. We'll see. These presentations are typically posted to our IHCP Live webpage. As I think I previously mentioned, we're also working on a specific page for this HCBS certification process. So we'll probably post a link to the presentation on there as well. And in addition, we're also working on a publication that should be coming out tomorrow that goes through all of the details, the step-by-step instructions to utilizing Salesforce in addition to this presentation. I'm going to go ahead and jump down since I can see House of Hope Home Care. Are you able to check the status of an application already submitted? Yes. So this is all being done through Salesforce. So if you log into your Salesforce portal, there's a button at the top of the screen that says Applications. That drop-down menu, you'll be able to go to In Review Applications. You'll be given a list view of anything that you've submitted to Salesforce that's currently under review with OMPP. That'll give you the status of it's in review, it's been returned for corrections, it's complete and waiting a provider ID through Gainwell, or whatever the status might be. But all of that is being done through Salesforce. Mia, if you'd like to ask your question. While we may wait for Mia, looks like we've got some additional questions. Let's go ahead and address, will there be any differences in applications and enrollment process for already established providers with an established provider ID? Great question. So if you are certified today through the Division of Aging, if you're not making any changes to your certification and you're just getting ready to start with the Pathways program or with the TBI or Health and Wellness waiver, if you're not making any changes today, your certification is still good to go. And our MCEs have been required to accept those certifications, as will DDRS. If you are seeking any changes to your certification, we will want you to go through this process through Salesforce and go ahead and indicate services that you're currently certified for, as well as any services that you're seeking certification for. And the reason we're doing that is we want this to be sort of a clean slate where all of your certification activity is housed within Salesforce. So again, to reiterate, if you're an existing provider and you're not making any changes today, you're fine to go until you're ready to make any changes. When that point comes, either you are ready to make a change to your certification with additional services or counties, or if your 5-year recertification or compliance review period is coming due, we will ask you to complete the process through Salesforce. And we'll give you more information about that in the weeks and months ahead. So Terry asked, now I'm going to start if you could hold your questions until I call upon you, that'll be the easiest to stay organized. But until we can get to that point, I'm going to go ahead and just start jumping in. Terry had a question. Did you all say health and wellness and pathways providers need to recert through Salesforce? When your time for recertification is due, you will receive a notification, and yes, that process will be initiated through Salesforce. Today, if you're good to go, you are certified, and you're not making any immediate changes to your certification, you don't have to take any action. But at the point where you are making changes to your certification or you are going through recertification, that process will be handled through our Salesforce system. Are we using, Amber asked, are we using both Salesforce and the IHCP portal, or are we transitioning to Salesforce alone? You'll be using both. Salesforce will be used for the certification process. The IHCP portal will continue to be used for provider enrollment purposes. Mary asked, is the health and wellness added to certification for old providers, or is this something that needs to be applied for? No. If you are certified through Division of Aging as an aged and disabled waiver provider for that particular service, you're grandfathered in for both the Pathways program and for health and wellness. If you make changes, then you'll go through the Salesforce process and you'll receive a new certification specifically for Pathways and for health and wellness. Kim asked, we are already a waiver provider. Will we need to reapply as a waiver provider under Salesforce? No. Again, and I think, well, I'll try not to repeat questions too much, but I just want to make sure this is understood, that current provider, you are good to go today for health and wellness or for the Pathways waiver. When you make any changes to your certification or upon recertification, when that process comes due, then you will go through Salesforce and you'll be issued a new certification letter. Will there be any differences in applications and enrollment process for already established providers with an established provider ID? I think I went through that already, but if you are an already existing enrolled provider and you're making any changes to your certification, we will ask you to go ahead and complete a new certification with all the services that you both are certified for today, as well as seeking certification for, so that it's all in one place within Salesforce. Angie asked, I submitted an application in December. It's still waiting review. Do I need to start with Salesforce? If you submitted an application in December, it's currently being processed with the Division of Aging. So it's within their queue and they're working through their queue, and we'll process them in the order that those applications have been received. There was an email stating that if we submitted applications after 4/1, we need to resubmit them to OMPP. When will we be able to do so? If you held off on submitting anything in the month of April and are waiting for OMPP certification process, we plan to open up our portal within 2 weeks, and we'll be giving provider notification once the portal goes live, but we expect that the portal will be available in the middle of May. Samuel asks, can a potential provider participate on both health and wellness and pathways waivers? If yes, is there any special requirement for the health and wellness waiver? And how long does the process take to be added to the pick list? So for certification purposes, you are certified for both waivers. You're not required to provide services for both populations. That's your business decision. But if you are certified to provide services for both populations, the big difference, if you're certified and seeking services for pathways, you'll be directed to contact one or all of our managed care entities to get going with them. On the other hand, if you're working with health and wellness, you'll be asked to contact DDRS and to be added to the pick list for health and wellness. Tracy asked, who is Salesforce? Salesforce is the name of, it's a company that we've been working with to create our electronic application system. So when we talk about Salesforce, that's the new electronic portal that HCBS providers will be using to complete certification. Even if I don't, so Tamia says, even if I don't have any modifications, I should still establish my Salesforce account, correct? Yes, that is correct. So you should go ahead and submit and establish your account. Make sure to save your password. And again, this will be your key for any certification activity moving forward. So even if you don't have any today, tomorrow you will, either by your choice, by adding new services or new locations, or through the recertification process that we'll be reinitiating later this year. So if you're ready to go ahead and establish your Salesforce account. And again, we'll be opening up the portal to providers in the middle of May. So watch for a final notification in the next couple of weeks. Jasmine asked, how can you access Salesforce? We will have a specific web page around the HCBS certification process, and we'll have links to the Salesforce system from there. That web page, along with the Salesforce system itself, will go live in the next couple of weeks. And we'll give providers final notification once that happens. If we have multiple service locations, do we need to create an account for each? They have their own NPIs. Yes, you do need to create an account for each location. Each location is separately certified. We're going to be tracking that within Salesforce at a location-specific account. So each one of your Salesforce accounts, as well as your IHCP enrollments, will all be at the individual enrollment, individual account level. So you need to make sure to have an account for each. Kim asked, I'm in the process currently today completing our revalidation. Good. I went through the IHCP portal and it did not tell me to use Salesforce. What now? The good thing is, if you're going through revalidation or you're with the IHCP enrollment process, you don't have to worry about Salesforce, at least unless you are making any changes to your certification. That's when Salesforce will come into play. But if you're just going through revalidation, you're good to go for right now. Nola asked, I've been a provider for ADS and healthcare coordination for years. I currently use the IHCP portal to revalidate and for billing. Yep. I will not be changing anything. I just went through the CARF process. I assume you do not need to do a Salesforce application until my recertification is due again in 5 years. If I understand though, I will need to contract with Humana, UHC, and Anthem for billing purposes, or will I still bill through IHCP? Great questions. So there is no requirement today as far as your Salesforce access. If you're not making any changes, you don't have to create an account right now, but When the time comes for recertification, if you have a Salesforce account, we will notify you through that account. If you don't, we'll be notifying you through the email address that we have on your IHCP enrollment. But at that point, you will be prompted to create a Salesforce account and you can go through recertification through that means. As far as your second question, if you are participating in the Pathways program, you do need to contact and contract with either one or all two or all three of the MCEs. So whether you're participating with Humana, United, or Anthem, they will be processing claims and you'll be working through their billing processes for billing Pathways members. If you are providing services on the health and wellness waiver population, those services will still be billed through the IHCP portal like you're used to today. Great questions. If you submitted an application, Donna asked, if you submitted an application after April 2nd, should you resubmit once the new portal takes place? If you've already submitted an application to Division of Aging, those are in the queue and they're being worked as they on a first in, first out basis. If you've held off on waiting for the IHCP portal to go live, that portal will go live in the next couple of weeks. Where can I obtain an updated certification letter with health and wellness added since we are an old provider? You can right now, I would direct you to contact Division of Aging to get a copy of your current certification letter. But until you go through the Salesforce process, we're not issuing any new certification letters adding health and wellness until you've gone through the Salesforce process. You don't need to do that today because with DDRS and with the MCEs, your current certification has been grandfathered in for both the Pathways program and the Health and Wellness program. But upon recertification, you will go through that process and get a new certification letter for the waivers as appropriate. When is the cutoff for FSSA applications that have already been submitted? So we're coordinating with Division of Aging as far as the transition period for accepting new applications. So if you went ahead and submitted an application in the month of April or into early May, those are in the queue to be worked by Division of Aging. But as far as a cutoff time, we didn't establish any time that neither party was taking care of applications. So if you've already submitted an application, it's in the queue to be worked. Future applications that can be submitted starting in the middle of May will be directed to OMPP. Megan asked, provider portal or is Salesforce a different link? The provider healthcare portal is a separate link from the Salesforce link. Salesforce link is not live yet. That will go live in the near future. And we will provide links to both so that it's all in one place for providers. Will you post FAQs from this webinar? It would be great to have it in writing that existing A&D waiver providers will be grandfathered. That's a great suggestion. So one of the things we were hoping for from this webinar was to get some questions and clarifications. So we're gonna build those into a final notification that's going out to providers announcing the final go live date for the portal. So that'll be coming up in the next couple of weeks. So definitely be on the lookout for that publication. If we are recently certified to provide structured family care, what is the process to add services with the MCEs? Same process as it would be for any other services. You'll be directed to each one of the MCE's websites. They'll give you specific details around how they want their applications to be submitted to them. Some of them are asking through email, others are asking through a portal to be submitted. Greg asks, can we get a list of requirements so that we have everything ready to go live date, since the go live date is not today? Great suggestion. So one of the supporting pieces of document of actually plans that we have in the coming weeks, we are planning to put out multiple documents around requirements for each one of the services. So in a couple of days, we're going to be issuing instructions on accessing Salesforce, so you can review that, getting ready for the portal. On our HCBS certification specific webpage, we will be including resources outlining all the required documents for each one of the services that we're certifying for, so that before you start this process, you can review that list and make sure that you've got the personnel policies, the background check policies, everything that we're requiring for each service. Now, as of today, the requirements that Division of Aging use for each service will be the same requirements that OMPP uses. In the future, we may be modifying that list. We likely will be modifying that list a little bit, but we'll give providers notification upon that at that time. But we're working on that. We're working on the documentation requirements document, and we're also working on quick videos that give you service by service. If you just like to watch a quick 2-minute video, that will describe all the requirements for each service as well. Not all of that will be ready to go for go live. That's activity that we're working on in the next few weeks. How often are agencies required to revalidate? Most providers have to revalidate with the IHCP every 5 years. And there is a separate recertification process. And it's also called a provider compliance review. And we're doing that every 3 years, I believe. I'll double check on that to make sure the time frame. But there are 2 separate processes. One is specific for your certification. One is specific to your IHCP enrollment. Nola asks, will these new managed care brokers, United Healthcare, Anthem, and Humana, be providing the case management and provide us with the new service plan for our ADS, transportation, healthcare coordination services for our existing and future clients? Good question. So there's best place for anything pathway specific, probably direct you to, they will be performing the case management services and issuing the service plans to providers. The best place to get information about pathways is to look to the Indiana Pathways for Aging specific webpage that FSSA maintains. A lot of good resources there, not just about participating with the health plans, but a lot of key details about how this program will be functioning starting on July 1st. To become a health and wellness provider, we're required to contact the email address. Are we expected to go through the BEADS the provider application process, or do we just need to contact them, be added to their pick list after we complete the certification and IHCP enrollment successfully? We'll take that back and confirm with BEADS on exactly the requirements, if there are any additional requirements necessary. We'll take that back for confirmation. So just to verify what the new process steps, Salesforce, IHCP, then Pathways. You are correct. So your certification starting point is with this new Salesforce platform. Then you're going to the IHCP for enrollment purposes. And then you're going to diverge a little bit You'll be directed to the MCEs for pathways, and you'll be directed to DDRS for health and wellness and TBI. I'm going to scroll back up to see if there are any additional lingering questions that we haven't addressed. Would it be safe to say that we need to update our policy and procedures to be congruent with FSSA or policies and procedures that have not changed? As far as going through certification, we want to make sure that we have the most up-to-date policies and procedures. So if you're going through this process, make sure that they're up to date with all the requirements necessary for pathways, for health and wellness. We do want to make sure that they're up to date as they're going through certification. Looks like we're just about out of time. So I think one last question, and I can't remember if we addressed this or not, but as far as the slides and the video recording, we are going to make the video recording available to providers. We'll be issuing that probably by the end of the week or early next week, depending upon timing. We usually typically put these recordings on our IHCP Live webpage, but we'll also issue it on our OMPP HCBS specific webpage, so you can check it out. Also, watch the IHCP bulletins tomorrow. We're expecting to issue our step-by-step instructions that we went through today through identifying the Salesforce platform. That'll be handy through a bulletin. So that'll come in handy just to reiterate the steps that we've gone through today during today's presentation. With that, I think we'll go ahead and conclude this presentation. I want to thank everybody for all the questions and for participation today. We hope you found it useful. We will be doing this. We plan to do this type of webinar specific to our HCBS certification process monthly for brand new providers. So if you're starting the Salesforce process and you have some additional questions or suggestions, or if you're a brand new provider and you want to learn this information again, we are going to be doing this monthly. We plan to do this again the first week of June, and we'll put those details out there when they become become available. But until then, we hope you all have a great day. Thanks for participating, and we'll see you next time.